On April 24, 2025, the USS William P. Lawrence, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, sliced through the choppy waters of the Taiwan Strait. This wasn't a casual cruise. It was a freedom of navigation operation, a clear statement from the U.S. Navy's 7th Fleet. High above, a P-8 Poseidon reconnaissance plane kept a watchful eye, scanning the sea and sky. Across the region, Allied forces were on high alert. This was a carefully planned mission with one message: international waters must remain free for all. The Taiwan Strait is one of the world's most sensitive waterways. At just 110 miles wide, it separates Taiwan from mainland China. Beijing considers it their internal waters, a claim the United States and most of the world reject. So, the William P. Lawrence sailed through, uninvited and impossible to ignore. But this high-stakes game of visibility goes both ways. As the American destroyer pushed deeper into the strait, Chinese radar stations were already tracking its every move from hundreds of miles away. The People's Liberation Army scrambled its own surveillance aircraft, and a Chinese warship began shadowing the American vessel. Tensions were already boiling. Washington had just approved another arms sale to Taiwan, and in response, Beijing had ramped up its military drills around the island. That morning, the situation escalated fast. It started with a voice crackling over the radio. "This is Chinese warship 132. You're approaching Chinese territorial waters. Turn around immediately." On the bridge of the William P. Lawrence, the crew was unfazed. They'd heard this kind of routine harassment before. But this time was different. This time, the warning came with a show of force. A PLA Air Force J-16 fighter jet, one of China's most advanced multi-role aircraft, was already airborne, screaming low and fast toward the destroyer. The J-16 is a beast, built for speed and intimidation, often armed with an array of deadly missiles and electronic warfare pods, and today, it was flying aggressively. From the deck, American sailors watched as the jet approached from the east, skimming just a few hundred feet above the waves. Inside the ship's combat information center, alarms blared. Contact inbound. Speed Mach 0.9, altitude 250 feet. The fighter wasn't just close, it was dangerously close. As it rocketed toward the destroyer, the J-16 dropped even lower, executing a high-speed pass just 150 feet from the ship's bow. This was no mistake. It was a deliberate act of intimidation, a clear provocation. The destroyer's powerful SPY-1 radar locked onto the jet instantly. Weapons crews were on standby, but the order was clear: do not escalate. No one fired. The jet roared past, its shockwave tearing across the deck. Inside the CIC, officers analyzed the maneuver. The fighter had entered a weapons engagement zone. If it were hostile, it could have launched a missile in seconds. The ship went to heightened readiness. Fire control radars tracked the J-16's every move. The ship's main deck gun and its phalanx close-in defense system were armed and ready. The pilot's intentions were a mystery, but his actions were undeniably reckless. Navy cameras recorded the entire encounter. Back at U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, live data streamed in. This was far from a routine intercept. The jet's speed, its low altitude, and its proximity made the situation incredibly dangerous, not just for the American sailors, but for the Chinese pilot as well. This wasn't the first time. In recent years, Chinese fighters have performed risky maneuvers near U.S. aircraft in the region, cutting in front of them or releasing flares and chaff dangerously close. But buzzing a guided missile destroyer at full throttle was a new level of escalation. After the first pass, the J-16 banked hard and circled back for another run. This time, it came in even lower. Sailors on deck could see the pilot's helmet, the sun glinting off his canopy. The fighter thundered overhead, a wall of noise and heat, before pulling up sharply and vanishing back into the sky. In that moment, every sailor aboard the William P. Lawrence felt the immense weight of the situation. In these politically charged waters, one tiny miscalculation, a pilot misjudging his line by a few feet, could have triggered a catastrophic response. spiraling into a full-blown international crisis. Meanwhile, the shadowing Chinese warship maintained its distance, a few nautical miles away, on a parallel course. The two navies hailed each other over the radio, keeping a tense but professional distance. The real drama, however, had unfolded in the air, a stark reminder of how close the world's superpowers are to the edge. Thanks for watching. If you found this story compelling, be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into modern military encounters. For 90 long minutes, a Chinese J-16 fighter jet loomed over the Taiwan Strait, circling a U.S. Navy destroyer. On the ship's bridge, every sailor was on high alert. This wasn't a drill. The air in the strait is always thick with tension, but this felt different. Beijing was sending a message, loud and clear. Every American vessel will be watched, challenged, and confronted. Washington's reply was just as firm. These are international waters, and the U.S. Navy will sail wherever international law allows. Finally, the J-16 peeled away and headed back to its base. The Chinese warship shadowing the American destroyer slowed its pace and turned south. The USS William P. Lawrence completed its transit through the strait, deliberately and without further incident. But the world was already watching. Hours later, the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command released a statement calling the J-16's maneuver an unsafe intercept in international waters. They warned that such behavior is dangerous and risks a disastrous miscalculation. Chinese state media fired back almost immediately, accusing the United States of provocation. They claimed the intercept was a necessary defense against foreign intrusion. But the footage tells a different story. The J-16's flyby was reckless, aggressive, and completely unnecessary. It buzzed the American destroyer, a move that could have ended in catastrophe. For the sailors on the William P. Lawrence, it was just another day on one of the world's most volatile waterways. But for military planners in Washington, Beijing, and Taipei, it was a chilling reminder of how thin the margin for error has become. The U.S. Navy doesn't back down, but it also doesn't forget. Every second of that encounter was recorded. Every radio transmission logged. Every radar track saved. Incidents like this are dissected, not just to improve safety, but to understand China's evolving military strategy. Was this pilot acting alone, or following direct orders? Was it a calculated escalation, or a one-off display of force? These are the questions being carefully analyzed right now. Meanwhile, U.S. destroyers like the William P. Lawrence continue their patrols, and so do Chinese ships and aircraft. The line between asserting rights and outright aggression gets blurrier every month.